You know that very specific modern feeling when your alarm goes off and, like, before your feet even hit the floor, you're already reaching for your phone?
Oh, yeah. Every single morning.
Right. And within seconds, you are usually just bombarded by this very specific gospel of efficiency.
Yeah, the whole productivity machine.
Exactly. I mean, we swipe through promises of a 5-minute workout for perfect abs or uh, a prompt to automate some massive chunk of our workday.
Or the definitive 10-day guide to getting ridiculously wealthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like our culture has completely elevated the life hack from just a neat little trick into a core life philosophy.
It really has. And honestly, it's become the defining anxiety of our era.
How do you mean?
Well, we've started viewing time spent as a fundamental problem that needs to be solved, or like an obstacle to bypass.
Yeah, I completely see that.
The underlying assumption behind almost every piece of content we consume is that if you are taking the long road to get somewhere, you are somehow, I don't know, failing at life.
Feeling at life because you're not doing it fast enough.
Exactly.
Well, that's actually the exact friction we are digging into today. For this deep dive, we are exploring a really profound text that throws a massive wrench into our entire hustle culture.
Oh, it really does.
We're looking at excerpts from a piece titled Becoming a Buddha Has No Shortcuts, written by Shofeng.
Which is such a striking title right out of the gate.
It is. And our mission today is to really understand the author's uncompromising assertion that for the truly monumental achievements in life, shortcuts aren't merely ineffective.
Right.
They are actively destructive. So for you listening, well, you might usually tune into things like this to, gather information as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, as we all do.
Yeah, as we all do. Today's source text ironically demands that we examine the slow, meticulous, almost painful path to true mastery.
I mean, the very title of the text is a direct confrontation to the modern mindset.
It really is.
We are tasked with distilling complex ideas for the listener, yet the core message we are unpacking is that there is absolutely no fast track to ultimate truth.
Right. So let's start with where the author sets his baseline. Because I like that he doesn't pretend the world is this purely idealistic place where hard work is always the only way.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah, he acknowledges right out of the gate that hacks and shortcuts do exist.
And they work.
Right, they actually work incredibly well for a lot of things.
The text is surprisingly blunt about this part. I mean, the author provides a specific laundry list of where shortcuts are highly effective in the real world.
Yeah, what does he list out?
He points out that there are shortcuts for stealing, deception, corruption, bribery, and fraud.
Well, yeah, I guess those are the ultimate shortcuts.
Exactly, and he explicitly mentions that you can find shortcuts to get rich overnight.
Okay.
He notes that shortcuts exist in officialdom, in business, on the battlefield, in romance, and in casinos.
So what stands out to me here is that the author isn't, like, denying the reality of the material world.
Right, he's very grounded in reality.
People do cheat to win in business. Armies use deception to win wars. People count cards in casinos, or they use manipulation in romance.
Unfortunately, yes.
And those shortcuts yield real, tangible results.
They do.
But then he draws this massive, uncrossable line in the sand.
He really does.
He states that while the world operates on these tricks, there are two things completely devoid of shortcuts:
And those are.
climbing the peak of science and becoming an immortal or a Buddha.
That line in the sand is so crucial.
Why do you think he specifically singles out science and enlightenment?
Well, the text makes a fundamental distinction between what is transactional and what is foundational.
Transactional versus foundational. Okay, explain that.
Think about success in business, politics, or a casino. Those are transactional games.
Right. They involve other people.
Exactly. They are based on human rules, human perception, and the exchange of resources.
Okay, I follow.
And because human systems are inherently flawed and subjective, you can game them.
You can hack them.
You can hack them. But science and spiritual enlightenment deal with objective foundational truth.
Okay.
You cannot bribe a mathematical equation.
Right.
You cannot manipulate the laws of thermodynamics with a clever pitch.
No matter how good your pitch is.
Exactly. And according to the author, you cannot cheat the spiritual reality of the universe.
It makes a lot of sense.
True seekers, or as he calls them, honest people, never look for tricks because they know reality itself cannot be tricked.
Okay, let's unpack this boundary between transactional and foundational, because I want to challenge that slightly.
Okay, let's hear it.
If we look at the history of science, it seems like there are massive shortcuts all the time.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, think about Alexander Fleming.
Okay, penicillin.
Right. He leaves a petri dish out by accident, some mold grows on it, and boom, he discovers penicillin.
Yeah, that's the classic story.
He didn't meticulously grind away at that specific experiment. He made a mistake and stumbled into one of the greatest medical breakthroughs in history.
It does look like that, yeah.
So doesn't serendipity act as the ultimate shortcut in science?
Well, it definitely looks like a shortcut from the outside, but if we examine the actual mechanics of that moment, it wasn't a shortcut at all.
How so? He literally left the window open or something.
Sure, but Alexander Fleming wasn't just a random person walking down the street who found some mold.
Fair point.
He was a brilliant bacteriologist who had spent years, I mean decades, building a profound, meticulous understanding of microscopic life.
Ah, okay. I see where you're going.
When the anomaly happened, he had the mental architecture already in place to recognize exactly what he was looking at.
He knew what the mistake meant.
Exactly. As Louis Pasteur famously said, chance favors only the prepared mind.
Right.
The accident wasn't a shortcut. It was merely a catalyst that interacted with decades of grueling foundational work.
That makes a lot of sense when you map it onto modern breakthroughs, too.
Definitely. What comes to mind?
Well, think about the mRNA vaccines developed a few years ago.
Oh, perfect example.
To the general public, it looked like this miraculous overnight life hack of medical science. Like, oh, we just threw this together in months.
Right. It seems so sudden.
But if you look at the actual scientists behind it, like Kettle and Carrico, it was actually built on 40 years of agonizingly slow, underfunded, microscopic breakthroughs.
Yes. 40 years.
What looked like a sudden jump was just the final brick in a massive wall they'd been building for decades.
Precisely. And this is exactly where the author shifts his argument from just a philosophical observation to an actual law of nature.
A law of nature.
He doesn't just say, don't take shortcuts because it's ethically wrong.
Okay, so what's his angle?
He argues that taking a shortcut in these foundational areas actually violates the physical laws of the universe.
Wow, okay. That's a big claim.
It is. And he relies on some really vivid, grounding metaphors to demonstrate that spiritual and intellectual growth are bound by the same immovable realities as biology and physics.
Yeah, I love the metaphors in this text. He starts with a very relatable plant metaphor.
Right, the seedling.
Yeah. He points out that plants rely on sunlight and the nourishment of rain over time. Like, you cannot skip steps in a plant's growth.
You can't just yell at a plant to grow faster.
Exactly. And most vividly, he says you certainly cannot grab a growing seedling and pull it upward to help it grow faster.
Oh, man. Imagine doing that.
Right. If you pull the seedling, you just rip out the roots and kill it. The intervention actually causes the death of the organism.
It's such a perfect image. And then the author scales this concept up to a cosmic level.
Oh, the celestial metaphor.
Yes. He describes the sun and the moon running meticulously on their strict orbits.
Okay.
Now, orbital mechanics are delicate balances of velocity and gravity.
Very delicate.
The text notes that if the sun or the moon suddenly sought a shortcut to their destination, they would be, in his words, smashed to pieces.
Smashed to pieces.
Right. Breaking the sequence results in total destruction.
And then he brings that same logic right back down to human biology with this really intense pregnancy metaphor.
Yeah, this one is pretty stark.
He states that a natural pregnancy takes 10 months, following its true nature.
Right.
If you seek quick success and decide to artificially induce labor at 5 months, the result isn't just a healthy, fast-tracked baby.
Definitely not.
The text warns that the result will be a monster or a freak.
And while the language there is very stark, the biological reality underlines his point perfectly.
How do you mean?
Well, embryonic development is a deeply sequential process of, organogenesis and cellular differentiation.
It has a schedule.
Exactly. A fetus at 5 months simply hasn't developed the necessary lung capacity or surfactant production to survive outside the womb.
Right.
You cannot simply compress that timeline because the biological mechanisms require a specific duration to physically manifest.
It makes me think if we look at the chemistry of everyday life, baking is a perfect analogy for this mechanism.
Oh, baking. Yeah, that's a great comparison.
If you're baking a complex cake, the recipe might call for baking it at 400 degrees for 1 hour. But if you're in a rush and you want a life hack, you might think, well, I'll just bake it at 800 degrees for half the time.
I feel like we've all had that intrusive thought.
We definitely have. But baking isn't just applying generic heat. It's a sequence of precise chemical reactions.
Right.
The proteins have to denature, the starches have to gelatinize, and the leavening agents have to release gas at a specific rate.
It's pure chemistry.
Exactly. If you crank the heat to 800, you don't speed up the chemistry. You introduce a completely different, violent chemical environment.
And what happens to the cake?
You end up with a burnt, incinerated shell on the outside and raw liquid batter on the inside. You cannot substitute heat for time.
Your baking analogy captures the exact mechanism the author is describing here.
It really boils down to trying to bypass the process.
Yeah, the author is aligning the maturation of the human soul or the arrival at a profound scientific truth with those immovable laws of chemistry and biology.
You just can't cheat it.
You cannot cheat the chemical reactions in baking. And you cannot cheat the maturation of your own consciousness.
Wow.
Gravity doesn't negotiate. Chemistry doesn't negotiate.
They really don't.
Trying to rush it doesn't just result in failure. It actually warps the final product into something entirely unnatural.
It destroys the very thing you are trying to create.
Exactly.
So if we accept this premise, if we acknowledge the absolute catastrophic danger of trying to bypass natural laws,
Which I think we have to.
right, it leads us to the most practical and probably the most intimidating part of this deep dive.
Okay, lay it on me.
If there are no shortcuts, what does the actual day-to-day work look like?
That's the big question.
And maybe more importantly, what is happening to us psychologically when we try to cheat that work?
Well, the author provides a very clear answer to what the work looks like, and it centers entirely on micro-effort.
Micro effort.
Yes. He writes that cultivating your behavior requires immense effort in every single word and action.
Every single word.
Furthermore, cultivating your mind requires effort in every single thought and intention.
That is heavy.
It is the ultimate rejection of the overnight success narrative.
Every single thought and intention. I mean, the text illustrates this through some incredible imagery of accumulation.
It really does. The imagery is beautiful.
It says that the great way starts from the minute, succeeds through drops and bits, and finishes in the subtle.
Drops and bits.
Yeah, it lists all these ways tiny things build up, like daily accumulation leads to prosperity.
All right.
Individual trees make a forest, grains of sand make a massive tower, and small streams eventually form raging rivers.
And he also uses a very specific, really fascinating traditional idiom in the text.
Oh, which one?
He says, accumulating tiny bits of armpit hair eventually makes a warm robe.
Wait, armpit hair. How does that translate to building a warm robe?
I know, it sounds super strange in English. But the original Chinese idiom refers to taking the tiny, almost microscopic tufts of fine fur from the underarms of foxes.
Oh, okay, that makes way more sense than what I was picturing.
Yeah, not human armpit hair. But the idea is gathering enough of those incredibly tiny, seemingly insignificant fox hairs will eventually create an immensely valuable, majestic, and warm robe.
That is a gorgeous metaphor.
It highlights that ultimate value comes from the meticulous, relentless collection of the smallest possible units of effort.
A journey of 1,000 miles truly begins with a single step.
Precisely.
Let's ground that ancient concept of watching every single thought and intention in modern cognitive science, because honestly, they're essentially saying the exact same thing.
I love when ancient philosophy maps onto modern neuroscience. How so?
Well, when we look at neuroplasticity and habit formation, we know that every single thought we have is a literal electrical impulse traveling down a neural pathway in the brain.
Right.
According to Hebb's law, neurons that fire together wire together.
All together, yep.
Every time you consciously direct a thought or practice a skill, you are wrapping a little bit of a substance called myelin around that neural pathway.
Okay, Maya.
The thicker the myelin sheath, the faster and more effortless that thought or action becomes.
That is a brilliant connection. The microscopic fox hairs in the author's metaphor are the exact equivalent of those microscopic layers of myelin.
Yes, exactly.
Mastery isn't a switch you flip. It is the physical, biological thickening of those neural pathways over time.
Right. It's literal physical growth in the brain.
So a shortcut implies bypassing the wiring process, but the wiring process is the mastery.
You literally can't separate them.
You cannot have the mastery without the physical accumulation of effort in the brain.
And that biological reality makes the text warnings about shortcuts so much more potent.
It really amps up the stakes.
The author outlines what he calls the trap. And he has incredibly harsh words for anyone who claims they can offer you a shortcut to becoming a Buddha or achieving true enlightenment.
Oh, he pulls no punches here.
He calls these people slanderers, people lacking merit, and straight-up demons. Yeah, The text states that if you give up doing the actual microscopic work just to go look for a trick, your mind has already fallen into a demon's cave and stepped onto an evil path.
The intensity of that language really forces us to look at the psychological damage caused by just the mere desire for a shortcut.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Why is the language so intense?
That's a great question.
The text says if you even look for a shortcut, you've fallen into a demon's cave. Why is merely looking for an easier way considered so deeply dangerous?
Right.
Does just the simple desire for a shortcut fundamentally ruin the whole journey?
It does. And it cuts to the psychological core of why we crave life hacks in the first place.
Okay, break that down for me.
The moment you desire a shortcut, your cognitive focus violently shifts.
If swear.
Well, true cultivation, as we just established with neuroplasticity, happens entirely in the present moment.
In the myelin wrapping.
Exactly. In the micro work of this specific word, this specific action, this specific thought,
Right.
the moment you start looking for a hack, you abandon the present moment entirely.
You're looking ahead.
You are living in an imagined, projected future where you have already achieved the reward without undergoing the transformation required to actually hold it.
Oh, wow. It's like you're trying to skip to the end credits of a movie without watching the plot unfold.
That is a great way to put it.
You get the resolution, but it means absolutely nothing because you didn't experience any of the conflict.
Exactly. And because the physical rewiring of the brain only exists in the present moment, by mentally leaping to the future, you have effectively halted all real progress.
You're just daydreaming.
You stopped walking. That is the demon's cave. It is the illusion of progress.
The illusion of progress that is so common today.
Think about how many hours people spend watching videos about how to perfectly optimize a workout routine.
Oh, guilty.
Right, doing all that without ever actually getting on the floor to do a single push-up.
It's so true. We consume the life hack to soothe our anxiety about not doing the actual work.
Exactly. Those offering shortcuts are preying on our natural human impatience.
Yeah.
And our deep discomfort with the slow, invisible void of daily progress. They are selling us a map to a place that doesn't exist.
And that leads to what might be the most mind-bending line in the entire text. It is the ultimate paradox.
I think I know the one you mean.
The author writes, "The furthest path is actually closest to the goal. The closest path is furthest from the goal."
It perfectly encapsulates everything we've been discussing, from the laws of physics to the neuroscience of habit formation.
Break down that paradox for us.
Okay, so the closest path, the shortcut, the life hack seems incredibly appealing because it promises you will arrive tomorrow.
Right, it looks so fast.
But because it bypasses the foundational biological and spiritual transformation required to sustain the goal, it ensures you will never actually reach true mastery.
You'll be a raw cake.
A raw kick. It guarantees failure. Therefore, it is literally the furthest path from your objective.
Wow. And the furthest path, the slow, grueling, step-by-step accumulation of sand or fox armpit hair or layers of myelin,
Yeah.
it seems like it will take a lifetime. It feels agonizingly far away.
It does.
But because it is the only path that actually conforms to the immovable laws of reality, it is the closest path.
Yes.
It is the only path that actually arrives at the destination.
Embracing this requires a complete rewiring of how we perceive time and effort.
How so?
We have to stop seeing the journey as a penalty or like a tax we have to pay to get what we want.
Right.
We have to start seeing the journey, the daily microscopic accumulation as the literal substance of the goal itself.
They aren't separate things.
The process and the outcome are not two separate things. They are the exact same thing, just viewed at different points in time.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you navigate a world completely obsessed with speed and efficiency?
It's a lot to take in.
It is. I think it serves as a profound invitation to let yourself off the hook of the modern hustle. It is permission to stop frantically searching for the life hack, for the things that truly matter to you.
Stop looking for the shortcut.
Right. If you are trying to build a meaningful career, if you're deep in your education, or if you are simply trying to be a better, more grounded human being, embrace the slow, meticulous accumulation.
Embrace the myelin.
Embrace the fact that you are an organism that requires time and sequence to grow, not a machine that can be overclocked. Let the sand make the tower.
I think that is a vital takeaway. There is a deep, abiding peace in accepting that some things simply require time and honest, microscopic
It
effort.
really is.
When you finally stop fighting the laws of nature and the architecture of your own biology, you can release that anxiety.
You can finally breathe.
You can stop looking at the horizon and finally focus on the single solid step right in front of you.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the source material, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over if you go out the rest of your day.
Hmm.
The text tells us that true cultivation, true mastery, doesn't happen in grand sweeping gestures.
Right.
It happens in the micro effort of every single thought and intention. It compares these tiny moments to grains of sand, slowly building a massive, unshakable tower.
Sand making the tower.
Exactly. If there truly are no shortcuts, and every passing thought you have is a literal building block, a physical rewiring of your brain, take a hard look at the idle passing thoughts you've had just today.
Oh, that's a tough mirror to look into.
It is. When you woke up and immediately reached for your phone, when you were sitting in traffic or when you were distracted at your desk,
Right.
what kind of architecture are you unconsciously building in your own mind right now?